Hey, all, I'm Bryan Fenley, and my guest today joining me is ESPN Senior Director of Programming and Acquisition, Stephanie Holmes. And if you're new to this conversation platform, I bring on a lot of different sports media folks, and we don't talk a whole lot about their work. We talk about their personal lives, their family lives, and we go into that human aspect of who they are, and we do it with compassion and empathy. Let's get to it. This is my conversation with Stephanie Holmes, and if you feel so compelled, don't forget to subscribe. Here it is. Given that my guest works a program at ESPN, Stephanie Holmes, Senior Director, Program and Acquisitions, there's a term that they throw around that live look-ins all the time. We're going to get that look-in into the life of Stephanie Holmes here on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, national radio anchor and tennis and golf broadcaster. This, Stephanie, as you know, this is a place where we don't talk. I mean, we talk a little bit of work, but we're going to learn about you from a human standpoint as someone who is a mom of three and learn that side of your life that oftentimes people don't talk a lot about because they're so work focused. You've seen
Mhm.
some of these. You're on this now. I'm excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. I would think by now you'd be like, ugh, enough with the ESPN people. So I appreciate being part of your esteemed group that you talk to.
When you say esteemed, you say Stephanie Holmes. And for as much as you do at ESPN, what is your life like outside of work? And I know that could be so demanding, but there's another side of you as well.
Yes, I have three kids, 14, 12, and 10. They are three different people. They have tons of different interests. So I spend my time running them around from here, there, and everywhere. I think every parent will tell you that they are a parent caregiver, someone who has like people who can't drive in there, like they're the taxi. I enjoy it. It's fun. I would say each of them they're just very different. My oldest son loves history and he loves to read, and if you say to him, we're going to the library, he is in the car faster than you can say, get your shoes on and get in there. My daughter is loves to play sports right now. Basketball and softball are her main focus. And, so she's here, there, and everywhere with practices. And, hey, can I go play here with this kid and that kid? And then my youngest son is the same way, except that he's working in like video games. And, I want to be this. I want to be, his thing right now is he wants to be a gamer, which is a fascinating conversation with a 10-year-old. So it's that, and it's all of the extra things that you do as each day is different, and you think one day is going to be, well, this will be a really easy day. I've got these four things that I got to do, and it turns out to be something different. And so couple that on top of my job, everything is everything. Sometimes you play it by ear for sure.
How do you cultivate their passions and encourage them with what their interests are right now?
I will say they have their own. They're driven on their own. My daughter, for as long as I can remember, wants to play college basketball, and her room is decorated. We live in Connecticut, so obviously she wants to play for a UConn, and we're watching every game, and we're going to the games, and she's outside shooting, and she takes my younger kid with her, and my oldest is he loves to read. He's loved books since he could speak,
Wow.
and he loves stories, and so, when as you see that happen, it's just you kind of go with it when you have those conversations. You almost see them as they've developed over time, where they tell you the stories. I mean, I tell my oldest all the time, he's got to write a book, because the things that he knows and he thinks about and he sees, and he likes sports. He's not really big into being a competitive, athlete or playing sports. He likes them, but his passion is books. His passion is history. So it's fun to talk to him about that type of stuff. And especially because my dad is also, really passionate about history. So you stick the two of them in a room together, and it's like free babysitting. I'm like, I'll see you later. I'm going to go, do something else while you entertain each other.
Given your history with ESPN, how much content do you have to write your own book, Stephanie? You've got a lot of stories. You've got a lot that you could put in there.
Yeah, I started off actually in local news as a news producer. and that was a long time ago. As my kids like to remind me, it was a long time ago. I started as a news producer. I was a production assistant first, and then I was a news producer. And then now I'm going to date myself. Then Columbine happened, and I decided I could not be a news producer. And then it kind of just over time, I really started getting drawn more and more into working in the sports world. And plus, when you come out of college for your first time, you're like, I just need to get a job. I didn't even know where I was going. And I just found ways. I found different avenues. I became a senior sports producer in Ohio, and then I found my way back to the East Coast because that's where my family was, and that's really where I've been. And over time, ESPN has changed and morphed into different things, and I've kind of just moved into different ways within the company. And it's a ride, and there's stories and there's things that you learn and that you grow from. And someone says, oh, well, I remember when ESPN did this, and I was like, oh, I was there, I did, I remember that. And so in that respect, it's such when you look back on it, it's really incredible, the things that you've been part of. And grateful, just been grateful that I could grow and that I was allowed to make mistakes, and I somehow didn't get myself fired, which is always a good thing
Yeah.
too. And I made, and we all make mistakes, but you know, it's been a really positive experience because it's just a great company to work for.
Being at that company, where do you find that it's given you added wisdom, not just with maneuvering work and its challenges, but tools outside of work and in family life as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been fortunate. I've been paired with some incredible mentors, and sitting there and talking with just talking with people. There's not one time, there's never been a time at ESPN where I haven't said to somebody, can I have 15 minutes just to bounce off an idea? Can I call you? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can we go sit outside or whatever? And be like, I'm trying to figure this out. And it could be anything. And we've been doing it now over Zoom since, the changes in the workflow of just how we're doing things nowadays. It's just, can I have a little bit of time? And I've never met anybody that's been like, nope, no, I do not have time for you. And that's from like the highest levels. I mean, was very fortunate to have our uh, uh, our CFO, Christine Dreesen, as a mentor years ago. This was like 10 years ago. And never once when I would send her a note and be like, can I get 15 minutes on your calendar, that she said no. She said, nope, we'll figure it out, get on my calendar. So think that's just part of the culture, and just being able to have that, and just spending time with so many different people who work on so many different things and have so many different experiences. You have just all these avenues to spend time with people and to say, show me how you did that, or, why did you choose that, or, how did you navigate this? Those are the best conversations that you can have. I love having those conversations with people. I say it all the time, like I would rather sit and spend 15 minutes getting to know somebody than really doing anything else. And it's let's have that conversation, because at some point you're going to need that person to help you on your side. So get to know people, because everybody has a really impressive story.
How much time do you set aside for yourself?
That's funny. That's really, I laugh at that. No, I laugh at that because it's actually one of these things where I'm in a leadership program, the Betsy Magnus program through WICT. And I laughed because that was the conversation we had yesterday. We had a Zoom call about, how do you take care of yourself, and how do you, and you have to find the pockets. And one of the things I was thinking about after that call was this notion of balance, right? Where everybody's trying to balance, and in work-life balance. And I just don't subscribe to the balance part, because there is no balance. It's not 50-50. It's, some days it's 75-25. Some days it's, 60-40. It really, you just have to kind of figure out how that works for you in every given day, any given day. From my perspective, I've always had really incredible bosses and teams and people that I work with and colleagues, that where you say, like, look, I have to go and do this, but I will take care of that when I'm done with it. and so you find your pockets, you find your moments where you can step back. You have to, and you do things that that are enjoyable to you, or you step away from the TV. Which in my case it's difficult because that's one of the parts of my job is, as my daughter will tell you, people when she was little, my job was to watch television, and I'm like,
A little
can
more
we
complicated than
adjust?
that. Yeah.
Let's adjust that a little bit. I don't watch television all the time, but I just you have to find it, and I think it's a really important part of just bringing and being authentic to what you need to do on a daily basis, and then go to a boss or a colleague or whatever and be like, this is what I need. And I've never had a conversation, for me personally, this is my personal experience. I've never had a conversation where they've been like, no, you can't, I can't grant you what you need. It has never happened for me.
When you're around those kind of people, they empower you. And
Hmm.
when you're able to have that free flowing communication, it's amazing the kind of work that can come out of that. And you mentioning being authentic to yourself, how do you judge yourself?
I've always been my harshest critic, always. Um, but I think over time and experience, you become a little bit softer, you become a little bit more gracious with kind of how things are going, where you go, I could have probably done that a little bit better, or I could have done. And that's also part of the, I think it's just it's the weight that everybody puts on themselves in whatever way their lives are. So I will sit there and be like, I probably could have done that better. But I think overall, if it turns out the way you want it, or you were hoping for it to be, I think that's always a win. So but I will always say that I'm probably my worst critic, and I will always sit there and say, this is where I could have been better. When 99% of the time, nobody knows the difference except me.
How did you see that manifest itself when you were a kid and you were with three other siblings?
Oh my gosh. I was very competitive. Very. I probably still am, I think, in certain ways. Um, I think I saw each of them be their own people. And so it was like, this is how I am. This is what feels right for me. So but I always want to win. I always wanted to win back then. And however way that manifests itself at work, I still want to win.
What is your
It's
biggest? Oh, go for it. Sorry.
winning. No, I'm just saying winning is fun. Like winning is fun, except that, it's not the end all be all at the end of the day.
What are your greatest wins?
Um, I think having worked in sports, I think um figuring out how to raise three kids in the life that my husband and I lead. My husband also works in the industry, and so he's busy doing his thing. I think it's having healthy, being healthy, having healthy conversation. Really looking at everything. We look at a lot of things with humor, and when the hard stuff comes, we try to invoke a little bit of humor for the kids so that they can learn to be resilient and to battle through. So really think it's them. I think it's just, hanging out with them, and seeing that, mom and dad work really hard, and having them learn that having a good work ethic is most important, is not most important, but it's crucial in terms of where you want to go in your life.
I can see how the self-driven mindset of you and your husband, how that wears off on your kids, that rubs off on your kids. You've given them so much. What have they given you?
Heartburn. Just kidding. Probably hair loss, probably they remind me about things that I forgot. Like, my oldest, as I said, my oldest loves to read. They forgot me how much I love, you reading a good book, or my daughter, or being with my daughter, and going out and shooting, and and playing, just basketball games in the driveway, or with my youngest son, just he just has an infectious enthusiasm, which is a nice way of saying he's really, really excited about everything in life. And trying to keep up with him, you're like, okay, it's okay, and it just reminds you that they just love, they just have such a positive outlook every day, where you can wake up in the morning and it's 30 degrees and it's super dark, and they come running downstairs and they're, excited because you put the Christmas decorations up. I mean, it's that type of stuff. It's being in the moment, which is a really, really important thing to always remember to be. And it's hard. It's very hard because, as we work at ESPN, we have a really strong work culture of like, okay, this is done. Let's get to the next thing, get to the next thing, get to the next thing. And you forget, like, just enjoy the moment for just take it in for a moment before you move on to the next. So that's what they remind me of. And they remind me that I told them I would do this, or they remind me I told them I would do that. And I'm like, I know, we'll get it all done. It'll get done eventually. Maybe not on your timeline, but it'll get done.
So what if I were to watch you and your daughter shooting hoops? What is that dynamic like when you two are
Oh,
out there playing basketball?
oh, it's fun. She's great. She is she laughs because there'll be times where she'll beat me, or she'll and I'll just be like, okay, just remember, I had knee surgeries and I had this, but I love that she loves to play, and that's really what it comes down to. Outside of anything else, I love that she loves to play, and we get such joy out of watching them do the things that they enjoy doing, like that, and that's it. I don't, when I watch her play basketball, because I know the game, like, so, you get a little bit worked up or whatever. But she plays softball, and I love watching her play softball because I know, obviously know the game of softball, but it's not that same drive and passion. I just love watching them play, and I just love watching them do the things that make them happy, which is really, at the end of the day, what you should do. It has nothing to do with anything else. And I say to them all the time, if you're done here, then let me know, and then we'll move on. We'll try something else. But you should love what you're doing, and you should love being able to go outside and shoot in your driveway and listen to music if that's how you want to spend your afternoon. So, but it does get a little competitive. I mean, she will come in and say that she beat me at horse, or she scored on me when she drove or whatever. It's we have a good time. I think she got the competitive spirit from me.
I feel like she's keeping track too. So she's
She
reminding
probably
you at
is.
all times how many times she's
Oh, yes.
beaten you.
Yes, and they also remind me that they're almost taller than I am, which I always appreciate as well. I'm like, "Yeah, thank you."
Stephanie Holmes is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. A look into her life. You talked about the joy of seeing your kids happy. What about your work makes you happiest?
Oh, wow. I work in so many different ways, and I have different responsibilities. I really enjoy the people that we work with. The programming department it just has a lot of fun people that you've spent so much time with, and you've seen them, get married and have kids, or their kids grow up, or their kids go to college, and you are invested in that life. And so when you've been there for a really long time, you see their lives, and you know that you can, walk in at any moment and say, okay, I have A, B, and C that I have to deal with, but tell me about how's your daughter doing at college, and how did that transition go for you, and have those types of conversations, and they're wonderful. And so I think, you know, solving a problem, or we all sitting down and saying, okay, has to be the end result. How do we get to the end result? And so, I don't think if the team or the department wasn't the way that it is, I wouldn't have stayed as long as I have, because it's just, that there are people there that you can work with. And then the people who have moved on to other things, you still have those conversations with them. You still check in. My first boss has moved on to a different company, and we still check in with him, and we say, hey, what are you doing, how you doing, that type of thing. So it's just that natural progression. So I really enjoy just working with other people, you know, and then getting to the end result together, however we get there.
With you working in programming, before you worked in programming, how were you seemingly pre-programmed to one day work in programming?
I don't even think I would have, if I could chart it out, I never thought that it would have charted this way. I thought when I graduated, I thought I was going to be an anchor. That was not good. I was not good at that. But I did find that I enjoyed creating a show, you know, especially when starting with news and being part of the behind the scenes of the creation of the show. And then we did, you know, I did news producing, and then I moved on to sports producing, and really just, you know, always loved sports. And so that became just more ingrained to me. And then, you know, once I came to ESPN, I actually really didn't understand the job that I was coming into. But over time, you know, we were able to really define certain roles and some of the things that I do now. And I realized that I just that's where I was meant to be. I was meant to be able to make quick decisions in terms of, you know, what's happening on TV. And I think that I rely a little bit on that for my producing, you know, sitting in the chair and being a news producer, and now sitting at home, and as things are starting to develop on, you know, on the networks, and being able to make good decisions based on a lot of different criteria. But, you know, just being a fan and just saying like, what at the,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm sitting at home watching, what would I want to see as a fan? Um, and that's, you know, and I think that it all kind of led to this point, although I didn't really script it at the time. It kind of manifested itself.
So for a lot of what you have to do, Stephanie, it's like you have to step outside of yourself and think about others as to what they want to see. So
Yeah.
what is that? How do you do that in a way of which there's what you see, but then having the sense to step outside of yourself and how that is such an important part of what you do too.
Yeah, a lot of the, so in the guidelines and conditions space where we talk about, you know, the what happens if, what happens when scenarios, right? What happens when game A runs into game B? And a lot of that is already, you know, predetermined, and it's very straightforward, and we know exactly what we want to do and how we want to do it. It's harder when it becomes something that's a little bit more unpredictable, and you really sit there and say, okay, this is the scenario that we're in, and you kind of walk everybody through the scenario. And sometimes there's larger conversation, yes, we should do this, or no, we should do that. And we know we're not going to make everybody happy. Look, if you're a sports fan, you want your sports when you want your sports.
Mhm.
And so I think in one of those, in that way, you know, that's understandable. And so you try to do the best thing based on everything that you know that you have in your, you know, at your fingertips, in your toolbox, so to speak. We laugh all the time. Like I'm a Yankees fan. I've been a Yankees fan since for as long as I can remember. My dad was a Yankees fan. I was, but when the Yankees play the Red Sox on ESPN and those games go 4 hours, that's just killer. You know, at that point, I'm like, I don't even care who wins, but
Yeah.
we're messing things up. We got to move this along. But it's really stepping back and thinking about, on the grand scheme of things, what are our priorities? What's our strategic vision that we've talked about that we know we want to accomplish? What can we do to best service the fan? And that's the goal, right? In any scenario, what can we do to best service the fan who is watching, however they're watching, whether they're streaming or they're watching on linear or whatever the case is. How can we serve them so that they can get the content they're looking for?
You serve them in the best way to get the content that they're looking for, and you best serve your kids and your husband and you being. I loved how you said it as you wrap up this conversation, Stephanie, the importance of presence and not just being there physically with your kids, but like really locked in with them, and how powerful that is. Literally being out there on the court with your daughter, sitting in maybe with your youngest and playing a video game or
Oh
watching
no, I can't
him.
do that. I can't figure out what he's playing. Like, to be honest, I will sit and watch him for a
You
little
sit and
while.
watch. Yeah.
I'm good. You can play with your brother, and I'll just watch you. I'm not. I'm trying to get better at it, but I do remind myself, especially and through the conversations, like it's so important because I can't believe how fast they've all grown up and they're going to be gone. They tell me all the things that they want to do, which is really exciting, but it goes really fast. So it's just it. I try really hard just to have that moment, or even when they're fighting, or even when they're whatever it is, you just try to be there. Try to be there mentally, because that moment will be gone pretty quickly.
This moment with you has been so much of being grateful to have your time. And as we close out this conversation, there's so many great things that I think we were able to highlight, but most importantly, that you're an uplifter of others, whether that's at home, whether that's in work. You got a competitive gene too. That makes you who you are. And learning about you as a mom and how you care for your kids and your husband, that's at the essence of what I wanted to get to in this conversation. And it was absolutely a blast having you. Stephanie Holmes, you know her, Senior Director, Programming and Acquisitions at ESPN. I'm Bryan Fenley. Stephanie, thanks so much for taking us outside of the working world in learning about the whole side of all sides of who you are from a human standpoint, and doing it with definitely I like to come from an empathy perspective.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always I enjoy your conversations and seeing all my colleagues. So and all the new people that I've never met. So I really appreciate your time as well.